We have a couple more songs left on the list, but
Yeah.
I wanna tackle your stuff now because people can go on the YouTube and we'll leave a link for I guess both lists. You know, if you'd like to give us your list as well, you're going to go over. But yeah, tell us a little bit. Give us your high notes.
Sure. All right. So first song in the list, and it's these first two songs on the list are to me kind of like two sides of the same coin, but like just totally capture, like, to me when I think of the sound of New York. One of them is kind of Ken Burns' fault, but the other one is just totally organically the Ornithology by Charlie Parker. And to me, like, I don't think I'll ever associate any single artist with New York more than like Charlie Parker.
No,
it's just, that's like an end of discussion, case closed thing for me personally, because I just think it is everything that New York aspires to be. Cool, elegant, and sophisticated, while also like raw and gritty. Like, it's all of those things combined seamlessly. Also, just like, he's the greatest. He is the greatest
he's
that
Disney,
there
folks.
ever was.
Yeah.
And like, New York is the greatest city in the world. You know, it's like, if New York's the greatest city in the world, then it must have created the greatest musician to have ever lived. And who's the greatest musician to have ever lived? Charlie Parker. Like, that's just a fact.
Right.
But yeah, Ornithology to me, that just sounds, it's so effortless, it's so classy, but it also, it moves with like a New York kind of pace, and it just instantly, talk about like cinematic. Like, if I walk down 6th Avenue and put on Ornithology, I'm in a movie. You know, it's like you just feel like you're in some like classic, you know, Woody Allen movie or something like that.
Yeah. I listened to it while cooking dinner the other night after you sent it, and I was in a movie.
Yeah.
I was like, who, me?
Yeah.
It's just a chicken.
Yeah. It's an amazing composition, and that recording of it is the definitive recording of it. So the other song, which is a Dizzy Gillespie composition, but is, you know, they're more or less kind of the same band. And I'm sure it's Charlie Parker who's playing alto sax on it, is Salt Peanuts. And that is sort of like the other side of the coin, because it's frantic and it's frenetic and it's, you know, super high energy, so it has like that subway energy. But the reason why I say it's partly Ken Burns' fault is because, like, in classic Ken Burns style, there's like this incredible anecdote about Salt Peanuts in the documentary about jazz that he made, which is that it's this Salt Peanuts is like arguably like the first big bebop hit that was like on the radio. It was kind of the nascent like moment of bebop, which was such a huge shift for jazz. And like, I think of New York jazz, I think of bebop, because like New York doesn't own jazz, obviously. Like, New Orleans is as much a claim to owning jazz as like Chicago is, as, you know, Los Angeles has its own, you know, thing.
Kansas City, I
Kansas
believe.
City, yeah. All kinds of places kind of claim jazz, but I think that New York can claim bebop, which and it's the most New York style of jazz, because, like, you know, bebop was the moment where jazz kind of stopped being music that you danced to and became music that you thought about, which is a very New York approach to jazz. You know, you can't really dance. That's like the whole thing with bebop. You don't go in a dance hall and, you know, dance to it. It's not really popular music. You go to a club and you sit down and you shut the fuck up and you listen to the intellectual gods, like, who have blessed you with the experience to peep at their genius, you know, which is so New York. But like, there's the anecdote is this, that song was a hit in 1946, and there's a story about a GI who's like retelling, like, he was like, I was on a carrier coming back from Europe, and we had just won the war. And I was so excited to be coming home to America after this horrific, traumatic experience that we'd all gone through together. We'd been on the ocean for a couple of days, and then we pull into New York Harbor and we slowly start to pick up the radio frequencies of, American radio stations. And the first thing I heard was this song that was just from Mars, and it was like the sound of that I had never heard before, and was frantic and frenetic and celebratory and joyous, and it just sounded like America celebrating winning World War II as you enter New York Harbor. And
wow,
I know that's so maudlin and so cheesy.
Who was the actor that was saying it? Was
Right,
it Tom
yeah.
Hanks? Was it?
No, I think that it was actually a real interview that they were cutting back and forth to the guy, but I can't remember. But it's just the perfect image of New York in 1946. We just won the war, and it's salt peanuts, and it's to me that just instantly makes me think of this. The energy that people think of when they think of New York.
Yeah.
The subway cars speeding past you, and the high frequency, rapid fire sort of New York imagery.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the big two for me.
Yeah.
Those are the two that really feel like just the official anthems of New York, effortlessly. Weren't trying to be, just happened to be.
Right.
But I have a lot of that period of music. I also have West End Blues is the next one on my list, which is a seminal moment. Louis Armstrong. This predates bebop, but it was an instant sensation when that recording came out, because it was the sort of fanfare that Louis Armstrong does at the beginning of it was something that nobody had ever really heard before, and then is also just he recorded it pretty soon after he moved to New York from Chicago, if I'm getting my history right, and is just a sort of Louis Armstrong's arrival on the scene in New York, which is really the start of true New York jazz history. Rhapsody in Blue. We got to talk about Rhapsody in Blue.
Sure.
Because this is one that I can't decide if it's too obvious.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. It really straddles the line.
Yeah. And I was almost hesitant to put it on there, because I'm ooh, is Rhapsody in Blue too iconic New York? I mean, it's in that's the Disney version of New York,
right,
is scored to Rhapsody in Blue.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just so good.
Yeah.
And it's also the most Jewish. I think that Rhapsody in Blue is the most well-rounded piece of New York music, because it pulls from every piece of New York culture. You've got that incredible, clarinet solo at the beginning, which is just pure Jewish, musical tradition. And then obviously it's a classical piece, so you've got the Upper East Side crowd, and then there's jazz, and there's, moments of frantic, subway energy, and then there's beautiful pastoral, Central Park theming, and I don't even know if Gershwin meant to have it be about New York, but it just seems like it is,
right,
without having a single word.
Right.
It's just all musical, but it just sounds like New York.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be something that stands the test of time. It's not people are going to be this is too schmaltzy. If anything, it's just going to, I don't know. I think it may edify further, kind of get more concrete, but it's also kind of there already. It's not, it doesn't have the same type of vibrancy that a bebop might have, but right. I don't know if it was ever built to have that from the beginning. So
yeah,
I agree. It makes sense to have it on there for sure.
And I think the kind of the other side of the coin, which I think that this does lean more towards, and I included it on purpose to sort of be a counterpoint to Rhapsody in Blue, is the prologue from West Side Story. Mm-hmm. And also because I was like, I gotta put some musical theater in there.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to put a song from West Side Story in there because it's too complicated to explain. I have very mixed feelings about West Side Story.
You want Officer Krupke on your playlist?
Yeah, right? Yeah. Well, I think that a part of me struggles to take West Side Story seriously because, like, on the one hand, like, the music is so good.
Yeah.
But the actor performances are always just inherently so phony.
Sure.
You know? And so, like, I love Cool, like the song Cool, but, like, when I hear musical theater singers sing it, even in the original Broadway cast recording, I'm just like, you're not that cool. And so that's why I did the prologue, because it's just Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's just pure Leonard Bernstein doing his thing, and that it sounds like New York to me.
Well, I think also, like, if you haven't seen it for a while, like, I never saw it performed live. I saw the movie, of course, but, like, just seeing, like, something from West Side Story, like, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And I, like, remember all the good, like, all the things that really do relate to New York, but I don't have to, like, experience what you're, like, the cheesy part that you're talking about.
Zim zam.
Yeah.
Where are we going? We're going downtown. Bim boom. You know, like, they couldn't curse. It's just like, the whole thing is just like this bizarre fake swearing.
Yeah.
Go cheese it off.
Yeah.
Action. Some shit like that.
Yeah.
I really want somebody to mount a production of West Side Story where they just replace all the fake cursing with real cursing. So it's just like, hey, action, get the fuck over here. And tell Tony to go fuck himself.
Have, like, Robert De Niro and that other guy do it. What's the other guy that plays with Robert De Niro all the time?
Al Pacino.
Or the other guy. Sorry,
Joe Pesci.
That's who I want to have.
And Robert De Niro doing Fosse. That would be so good. They could get Martin Scorsese to de-age them.
Yes.
Like in
Like in that last one.
Just do the whole thing mocap.
Oh my gosh.
But it's still it's still De Niro unable to, like, move his body, so it's like, oh yeah, you're 30. Okay, I believe that.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Get Benicio del Toro to play all of the Latino characters. He just, like, Tyler Perry's it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your music, but but before we do that, if you were to pick one song,
Burning Desire.
Well, if you were to pick one song, let's say, that you were going to walk around the streets of New York with, that we haven't covered already, what would be, like, kind of the cinematic song that you would recommend for people?
Question. That is a really good question. I guess I would have to go with Flamenco Sketches, honestly. I feel like that's a fairly cheesy answer, but it's just the one that, like, is, I'm looking at this list and it's like, me, this one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because that song is beautiful anywhere. I mean, it makes me fucking cry when I hear that. And it's a Bill Evans composition. It's a weird history with that song because it was originally a Bill Evans composition called Peace, Peace.
Okay.
Peace, like serenity, peace, like composition, peace. Okay. That he included on one of his first records, Everybody Digs Bill Evans. And then Miles Davis liked it so much that he was like, we're going to put that on Kind of Blue. And we're going to flesh it out and make it a new composition. And they, like, wrote some other changes to it. In the original version, it's just that one chord progression over and over and over again, and he just kind of does variations on it. But, like, it's just that, there's no more, like, beautiful, like, New York-y moment to me than, like, sitting in, like, Brooklyn Bridge Park and looking at the Manhattan skyline, like, during sunset and like listening to Flamenco Sketches. Like, that would just devastate me, like, every time. Like, in the most self-indulgent, cheesy, like, you know, if you put that in a movie, it would be criticized for being
For being like too spot on.
Yeah. Like it would be too obvious. But if you do it in real life, in private, you'll cry. Like if you're sitting in Brooklyn Bridge Park at sunset, looking at Lower Manhattan, listening to Flamenco Sketches, and you don't cry, go the fuck back to Wisconsin. Okay? I'm saying it here for now. You don't belong here.
I love it.
But I have a burning desire. I have to talk about the Roaches.
Oh yeah,
yes,
we were listening to
yes.
that yesterday.
Yeah, go on.
Because
That's
this is
such a good song.
This is just a band that doesn't get talked about a lot, and I am evangelical about them. And I think relates interestingly to the New York folk scene, because the Roaches are a band. They're actually from New Jersey. It's these three sisters, Maggie, Terry, and Suzy, that started a folk trio. Paul Simon discovered them. They would have been discovered either way.
Sure.
But, and had them sing backup vocals on a couple tracks, and There Goes Rhymin' Simon. But then they got a record deal, and they made records for about 20 years. And they were a major part of the New York folk scene in the late 70s and 80s, which is a weird period. They were very, very regular at a club called Folk City, which I don't think exists anymore. They wrote a song about Folk City called Face Down at Folk City, which is a really funny song. And their music is amazing. It's their harmonies are just breathtaking, but also their witticisms are incredible. They are simultaneously the funniest and the saddest band of all time. They have like this incredible sense of humor, and they have these songs that have this childlike, it's almost like a cynical toddler. It's hard to describe. But then they also have these songs of just like pure, unselfconscious, like bare heartbreak that just like lay bare this deep, resigned, emotional mourning that it can just break you in two. And so this song actually perfectly kind of encapsulates both of those feelings. And I was really pleased with myself when I selected this song called "The Train," which is about the experience of being a commuter on a commuter train into New York City. And the song is really funny. It has these really funny lyrics about being afraid of the guy who's sitting next to you.
Right.
And he's drinking 2 beers and reading the New York Post. But it's also like, it comes across very clearly in the song that like this person is longing for something, and it's not specified really what it is, but that there's a melancholy, there's a mysterious kind of melancholy to the song that like if you look at it through that prism can really cut you emotionally. And
well, the inability to puncture that barrier in New York City, which like can be a curse and also a blessing at the same time. Like, when do you want that barrier up? When do you want it down?
It's like the incredible loneliness of being in the middle of a crowd. You know, that's sort of, which is such
a New York feeling,
universal New York experience. Everybody knows what it's like to be like surrounded by people on all sides and feel totally alone.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And that song, I feel like, as well as any song, just captures that feeling. But in general, I just need to make like a public pitch for everyone to listen to the Roaches, because they are one of the great. They never really had any breakthrough success, and like it's like a tragedy that they're not like the most celebrated singer-songwriters of their generation.
I was so glad that you put that on there, because there's one song of theirs that I think is on the same album. It's the Hammond song. Which I have like also on another playlist. It must have just like shown up, and I was like, I like this. This is beautiful. And so I hear that song all the time, and I was like, I recognize this voice. Like, what is this? And then, so now I'm going to listen to the whole thing. But I've never even listened to the whole thing.
Listen to that.
So,
that's off their first
great that you
album.
added that.
I highly recommend you listen to that album and an album called Speak, and an album, if you can find it, because it's like not on any stream. I happen to have it because I had a DVD of it, or a CD that I ripped onto my computer when I was like a teenager, and it's still on my iTunes from then. But I think you'd have to like buy it off of eBay. Called A Dove,
Cool.
Which is just like the most beautiful record ever. They also were on an episode of Tiny Toons.
Oh, really?
Fun fact.
That's hilarious.
Yes, as cartoon roaches.
Nice.
Somebody in the writing staff at Tiny Toons was a fan.
Nice.
But that's also a very New York song for me, because the way that I know about the Roaches is that my dad and my mom were big fans of theirs, and we'd go to see them live in the 80s. And so my sister and I listened to the Roaches constantly as children in the car. So like it's layers upon layers of like New York impression for me when I hear that.